name's Alice Gray and welcome to another episode of Grey Matter, this series of science shorts that talks all things brain and cracks all things cranium. As a Welsh girl, I am a big fan of rugby, and in the last few years we've seen a huge policy shift in rugby and how we protect rugby players from concussions. In fact, concussions are incredibly common in this game and is the single most common injury in the England rugby team. Now, of course, rugby isn't the only game where there's high risk of head injury, with other games like ice hockey, lacrosse and football having high rates of concussion. But we also see high rates of concussion in non-contact sports like gymnastics, cycling and horse riding. Symptoms of concussion can vary from emotional changeability to amnesia to cognitive impairment. But why are people so concerned about a bump to the head? Well, actually a concussion is a form of traumatic brain injury, often defined as a head injury that causes a loss of brain function and is often seen with a loss of consciousness. Inside your skull, your brain is surrounded by a liquid called cerebrospinal fluid, and this helps to protect your brain as you move your head around, but also it can act as a cushion during light trauma. However, in more serious cases of trauma, like acceleration or a blow to the head, this liquid can't protect your brain. Whether it's during a road traffic collision or during a game of ice hockey or rugby, acceleration exerts forces on the brain, which causes your brain to rattle around inside your skull. The parts of the brain most affected by these forces of acceleration are the midbrain and the diencephalon, and this can cause changes in the brain's activity, and these can last up to several weeks after the incident. After a head injury, we tend to see deregulation of the cellular metabolisms within the brain, and we can see an imbalance in calcium and potassium, which can lead to toxicity, which can kill off brain cells. We also see an increased and excessive release of the neurotransmitter glutamate, as well as decreased blood flow to the brain. And the reason people are so concerned about concussions is that if they're left undetected, they can lead to long-term brain damage, and they can actually be fatal. In fact, concussions can lead to a form of dementia called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. A brain injury in mid or early life can double or quadruple your chances of developing CTE. In fact, CTE is incredibly common in retired ice hockey players. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy occurs in 4 stages, and it tends to start to appear around a decade after repetitive experiences of mild head injuries. The first stages of developing this form of dementia usually include things like developing ADHD, headaches and disorientation. They then tend to go on to develop memory loss, movement disorders and speech issues, and CTE can actually also lead to Alzheimer's disease. And this is why there's been a huge shift in attention to concussions in contact sports, because not only can it land players in hospital for a few weeks, but it can lead to long-term brain damage. If you enjoyed this episode of Grey Matter, give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and stay tuned for next time.